I don't know what you think about the issue in relation to Sam Kerr calling someone a white bastard. There are many people out there that I'd be happy to call a bastard, and I'm about to refer to one of them in particular, namely Andrew Bolt, because he is. He just happens to be white. So is it racism to call someone like Andrew Bolt, who is, in my view, my humble view, a racist, and the fact that he is white, a white racist? Well, I guess it is. Would we call someone who's black a black racist? I don't think we necessarily would. And what is the difference between citing someone as racist and racism itself? These are questions, I guess, that we need to be asked. Now, I also want to raise the point that this issue in relation to Sam Kerr has happened 12 months after the event. So the other question is, what is it that actually happened back then that has meant that they've taken 12 months to act upon it? There's a whole host of issues that are involved in this Sam Kerr catastrophe, and one of them is not necessarily Sam Kerr. One is the way we view racism, how racism is interpreted in this country, and how we should manage it. Now, there are a number of issues that are unanswered, and one of them is what was said by the cab driver. How did Sam respond to what was said? And then how did the police officer respond when called? And what are the real issues that are at stake here? They say, I guess, that it is the allegation of racism because she called him white. So, you know, in African American culture, you can certainly call someone a black bastard and get away with it if you are black. But apparently, if you're of a colour and extremely wealthy, as is the case with Sam, you certainly can't refer to the way you're being treated as being the fact that that person happens to be white. So this has created a massive stir, one which I wonder whether it's really all that necessary and whether it's really about the right wing in particular getting their knickers in a knot, because suddenly they've got an opportunity to refer to someone who is of colour a racist because they referred to a white person as being a bastard. So what does all of this mean? Well, it's quite interesting that Craig Foster, who was captain of the Australian team, a soccer expert, he first had issues around what had happened with regard to Sam calling someone a white bastard. He saw it as being racist. He since has changed his mind. This is what he said. Kerr allegedly called a police officer a stupid white bastard or a stupid white cop after a night out in London in January 2023. She has pleaded not guilty in court to a charge of racially aggravated harassment. Poor bastard. It's so sad. Foster last week urged Football Australia to strip Kerr of the Matildas captaincy if the allegation was proven, to make a stand against racism. He said interpersonal racism against a white person is still racism. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with that in essence, but it's a little bit more involved than just that. But on Saturday, he explained that he had changed his mind. Like many, I mistakenly thought that comments that referenced any colour and were discriminatory, demeaning or hostile were a form of racism. I apologise to Sam for that mistake, Foster wrote on X. Judging from the coverage, comments and conversations we're all having every day, there were major gaps in knowledge about how to deal with situations where the descriptor white is used in a derogatory way. As many experts and leading anti-racism groups have pointed out, interpersonal comments can be offensive, abusive or inappropriate. However, racism can only be perpetrated against a marginalised person or group, which anti-racism frameworks are specifically designed to protect. Foster cited the Diversity Council of Australia's definition of racism as being when someone with race-based societal power discriminates, excludes or disadvantages a racially based person because of their race, colour or descent. Now, it's impressive, I think, that Craig had decided to do some investigating around all of this and came to the conclusion that what Sam did was not racist based. You know, to be a bit like, I reckon, if in the Australian vernacular you called someone a bastard, does that mean that that person is an illegitimate child? No, it doesn't. It simply means that you just don't like them for whatever reason. In the Australian vernacular, that can also mean that you like them. So, you know, so when we're extending the word white, doesn't mean that we're having a go at a person because of their race. No, we're not. Because in the context in the UK in particular, the white people are the ones who have the majority. They are the ones, they are in fact the colonisers. So they are the ones with the power and authority to control the minority, which in her case are those people of colour. So how does this play out then? Well, it's an interesting comment. There's some interesting comments about the definition of racism also in the conversation, which is worthwhile pointing out. It is important to note that race is not a biological category where there is only one human race. Race is a social construct invented and cemented centuries ago to legitimise colonial atrocities, oppression, and forms of subjugation, including slavery. There are many definitions of racism, but there has been a broad consensus for decades that racism is more than just prejudice and discriminatory behaviour. It is not simply a matter of less favourable treatment of an individual or group of people based on their actual or ascribed ethnic background, skin colour, origin, or related characteristics. Racism also reflects and manifests as systemic exclusion and marginalisation based on historically rooted power imbalances and racial hierarchies that put white people at the top. To put it very simply, the scholarly, if not the legal definition, is that racism equals power plus prejudice. Now, we don't know what specifically happened in relation to this issue with regard to Sam. We don't know what was said to her. We don't know how that was interpreted. We don't know whether that person actually had a racist slur against her and she responded in the way that she did. Now, I'm not going to justify for a minute that she threw up in a cab. She shouldn't have thrown up in the cab. She shouldn't have been that pissed to start with. Not a good look. And he probably asked, assuming it was a he, the cab driver asked her for an additional fee to pay for the cleanup, which is reasonable. I get all of that. But there's something that happened in the interim there that particularly got under Sam's skin. And I would suggest that it's the way that she was spoken to. But again, we don't know. But who buys into this? The right wing buy into it, and particularly my favourite man, Andrew Bolt. And this is what he had to say.
We now know what Sam Kerr allegedly called a police officer, and she's actually done us a huge favour. She's made the left here, Labor, the ABC, confront their hypocrisy. I mean, you know, saying racism is so terrible, but not if it's racism against whites. Now, Sam Kerr is, of course, the captain of the Australian women.
So the question we need to be asking here, which Andrew is asking, is there such a thing as racism against white people? Is there such a thing against racism against the colonisers? Is there such thing as racism when it is a minority group of people referring back to the majority as and highlighting their white privilege? No, it isn't racism if you see it in that light.
The Australian women's soccer team, a superstar. But last year, police in London were called to deal with her after she allegedly threw up in the back of a taxi. There was a dispute about the fare, I assume because the driver wanted money for the clean-up. And Kerr allegedly, reportedly, called a police officer a stupid white bastard. She's now been charged with racially aggravated harassment. I should stress, she says she is innocent. And people today obsessed with race politics, this popular...
I think this is a classic. This man is obsessed with race politics, absolutely obsessed with it. And I'm not going to play this whole clip for you, but somewhere in this clip, he pulls out all the obsessive, extreme views around that are proposed by certain people, psychiatrists, black advocates, some people saying they want to kill all white people. He goes into this extreme perspective, which is only Andrew Bolt's the only person I know that can do this. And, you know, he gets away with it every time, except I'm not going to let him get away with it here. Andrew Bolt's a piece of extreme human excrement, and he needs to be called out for what he is, because he wants to focus on this opportunity to be able to present Sam Kerr as a racist, where in actual fact the racist in this instance happens to be people who are similar to those people who characterise the others, normally black people or people of colour, as being different to them, which is what Andrew Bolt tends to do.
This popular race politics now might assume, of course, she's innocent. Isn't she non-white herself, thanks to one grandparent on her father's side who's Indian? And didn't she pose with the Aboriginal flag and join the Black Lives Matter movement?
Racism has been around for far too long.
In fact, she was insisting only a few months ago in a gay pride push that we let people be comfortable in their skin.
Everyone should feel comfortable in whatever skin they want to be, whoever they want to be.
I've never actually bought the idea that flying the Aboriginal flag or joining the Black Lives Matter movement made you anti-racist. Maybe the opposite, because for many, those things seem more about getting their preferred race more power. It was about the side, it wasn't about the principle.
And that's the issue. The issue is that people like Bolt are afraid that black people or people that are different to them, LGBTQI plus people, are the ones that are gaining the power. So Bolt is scared shitless that there will be this trend, and there is this trend, to acknowledging that people like Sam Kerr and others have power and authority that they don't have. That people like Sam Kerr are wealthy. They, you know, in the UK, you go everywhere and you see these images of Sam Kerr, more so there than in Australia, because of the team that she plays for and the success that she's had. So he feels threatened by people like Sam and must do whatever he can to pull them down, to destroy them, so that he feels good about himself. He's a revolting human being, and we've got to push back against this stuff. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that whatever Sam Kerr did was okay. It probably wasn't. But whether she needs to be taken to court to be tried on these terms of racial harassment is another issue altogether, and I think that's just taking it too far. Now, let me know what you think in the comments below. Please subscribe to my channel as well. And look, you know, do you think Sam went too far? Do you think it needs to go to a trial? What do you think of the types of comments that you get from people like Andrew Bolt, who use this as an opportunity to spout their own crap about racism, so that they're the ones that can feel like, you know, if they wouldn't have any idea, as I wouldn't have any idea, what it's like to be a coloured person and to be confronted by racism every single day of your life. They would not know what that feels like. Yet here they are claiming disadvantage because they are simply white and bastards. What can I say? Let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.